Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
On goes Paul. People might yet win it here for Wolves. Blasting the shot. What a goal!
Hi everybody and welcome to the latest episode of GTA Fancast with me, Gully, on the Wolves Fancast YouTube channel. We're going to be wrapping up with the World Cup break on the horizon here with a review of the Arsenal game, final game before Julian Lopetegui takes charge. And I guess with that in mind, there isn't too much, too many conclusions you can draw with the kind of new approach on the horizon. Like I say, new manager in charge, new tactics, new philosophy, all those things that mean what's kind of left behind at this point doesn't necessarily mean too much, but I think there are some interesting things to take from the game anyway. It was a tight one. We obviously transitioned to a back five for the first time this season, and I think the team looked a lot more comfortable for it, but things kind of changed and hinged on that opening goal. So we'll start there. And if you have a look at the first kind of graphic that I've got here for you, image of Gabriel Jesus as he receives the ball on that left flank. And things look okay, really. We're in a pretty good position. You can see our line of fire from Semedo all the way across to Hugo Bueno on the far side, strung across the edge of the 18-yard area. Everyone's kind of aware of where their man is. And we're relatively set. It's not necessarily a situation you expect a goal to occur from immediately. But some good work, obviously, from Jesus on the left flank with a runner from in Fabio Vieira opens us up. And I think this is more kind of a technical point necessarily than a tactical one, because I still think we're not in a bad setup defensively at this point. But as Jesus kind of goes to take on his man, you can see in these three images the sequence that leads to Vieira actually finding the space in the left-hand side of the box. You can see here Nathan Collins in particular. Now, caveated again by the fact that I'm not sure how much time he's actually spent playing in a back three. It's the kind of situation that I very much doubt Nuno's defence would have found themselves in. We're very kind of tight and compact in that shape, and this is exactly what a back three tends to try and avoid is players finding space in the place that Vieira ended up doing. But here you can see as Jesus kind of cuts inside, Collins is in a bad position. Vieira is running off his shoulder, but as Jesus cuts inside, you can see in terms of the body shape that Collins then leads to. He's actually opened himself up and got caught square on. In the first image, I don't think he's in a bad place really, because he can react if the ball gets played in behind him to kind of cut the pass off. He might not be 100% aware of his man, but things happen quickly in these scenarios. He needs a shout from probably Kilman behind him to make him aware of that, and he can kind of sidle off to his right hand side and potentially cut out the pass. But as Jesus comes inside, he's totally distracted by potentially having to deal with Jesus if he's got away from Semedo. I don't think Semedo's necessarily done in this situation. So maybe he's been a bit too eager to try and then engage Jesus as he comes inside here. You can see there's another pass on there, I think, into Ødegaard, who's come as an option. But Vieira making that run in behind has gone totally unawares. If Collins maintains his shape in kind of more of a side-on position as he does in the first image, like I say, he can act upon it. But he's got caught square. It's not quite the easiest position to turn from, and because everything happens so quickly, you find space in the box, and then ultimately they lead to the first goal being scored. And from there, obviously, we're on a hiding to nothing really, given our goal scoring record and the form that Arsenal are in. We made a decent go of it, but it was never that likely to be much of a comeback. And frankly, the second was probably only a matter of time, really, giving us chase in the game. What I did think about in terms of the way Arsenal play, the way many of the top teams play, was kind of what kind of things can you draw from them? And it's interesting to me that Arsenal are a team that are kind of littered with a lot of left footers. And when you look at our midfield in particular, they're not every single one of them is predominantly right-footed. Think about Boubacar Traore, Ruben Neves, João Coutinho, Matheus Nunes, even Joe Hodge, Conor Owen, and players like that. They all favour their right-hand side. So it kind of limits us a little bit in terms of progressing the ball, moving the ball, receiving the ball in certain areas and making the most of it, because they'll tend to want to kind of either play a simple pass if the ball isn't on their favoured side, or try and shift it onto that stronger foot, which can hamper a team in build-up for sure. Now, in Arsenal's midfield, and I'll share my screen here just to kind of illustrate the point that I was making. You can see that they've got quite a few left-footed players in there. Obviously, Granit Xhaka tends to start in the central midfield area, and you've also got players like Martin Odegaard, who's predominantly left-footed. But Alexander Zinchenko is the kind of primary focus of my attention here, who plays nominally as a left-back, but we saw plenty of times him coming in field and actually getting involved in build-up. And what leads to that leads to is a kind of box midfield setup here with Partey, Vieira, Odegaard and Zinchenko able to dominate kind of build-up in that area of the pitch. It also means Vieira can kind of get involved in build-up higher up the pitch and be more of a higher receiver of the ball. And Zinchenko fills that space in there. Martinelli holds the width. So it's not necessarily an issue if Zinchenko isn't available on the overlap. He did obviously offer himself in those situations, but if I kind of just illustrate the point, in reality, you've got his heat map here, which kind of points out he's featuring quite high. He's getting lots of touches higher up the pitch and approaching the final third, rather than all the way up in the towards the penalty area, where many fullbacks might actually get to if the team's dominating the ball. But he did for the second goal, as we know. But clearly an instruction there to kind of sit deeper in the pitch and get involved in facilitating the play as he gets higher. What that led to is some really good numbers in terms of progressing the ball. He played 12 passes into the final third, as you can see here from the FBref data that I've got in front of us. 6 progressive passes in total, which was the highest of any of the Arsenal players. Good progressive distance there. He is really, really key in trying to build the play, and I think Wolves could potentially do with a left-footed midfielder in there just to vary things up a little bit and help us get the ball into advanced areas, and rather than expecting someone like Matheus Nunes, who features heavily in that left-hand side of the pitch, especially when it's at Sporting. The insistence there is on carrying the ball at the pitch, which can be more difficult, obviously, if you're confronted with a lot of bodies. Sometimes it's obviously naturally a more profitable way to move the ball forward with a left footer in there who can actually spray a few passes around. Romain Saiss was really, really good at it from a deeper position, but I think we could benefit from having a player in there who's playing a little bit higher up and can make things happen for us from midfield. We'll try and end on a bit of a positive, and I thought actually Boubacar Traore was incredible in this game. Clear instruction, I think, here to feature him on the right-hand side of the midfield three from the beginning of the game, with very much a motive to go and press Zinchenko, who obviously we see is quite important. And he wasn't necessarily as influential as he has been in probably other games because of Traore's positioning. And the difference for me in this game from Traore's perspective was that he is actually a hell of a lot more effective on the ball than he has been in other games that he's played this season. But the end kind of midfield that we finished the game with was Traore to the right, Neves in the middle, and Matheus Nunes to the left. And while they weren't on the pitch for very long, there was a specific piece of play which hinted at what could be a bright future for that kind of trio. And it's something that I'd like to see a hell of a lot more of. You can see here I've got another graphic up which points out ball kind of landing in the middle of the pitch, Boubacar Traore picking it up under a bit of pressure actually from a couple of Arsenal players. But he did really, really well to kind of turn away from both of them and open up the space in the middle of the park, where he actually switches the ball across towards Matheus Nunes, who's found some space in that left-hand channel, the other side of the Arsenal midfield. And this is where his ability to drive with the ball really, really came out. And it's exactly the kind of situation we've not seen him in enough so far this season. Ultimately, the move fizzles out as he approaches the 18-yard box. He's got Daniel Pedence making a run. He should make a better pass ultimately in there, and that's where I think the hierarchy have been quite disappointed in him. At certain times this season, he's been quite loose with his passing. He's been quite loose. That was the term that Steve Davis specifically used to describe him in terms of off-the-ball situations as well. But it goes to show that, without even using Neves as a conduit in that scenario as well, we've got a very, very capable midfield here. Certainly a midfield far too good to be sitting bottom of the league. And that's the kind of midfield I want to be seeing opening up against, hopefully Everton when we come back, obviously pending the way things go for Nunes and Neves at the World Cup and how tired they might be. But that's our first Premier League game back, and I'd love to see that as a midfield trio. Obviously, João Moutinho is falling by the wayside on that front, but I think we can all agree that he hasn't necessarily performed to the level that we need him to, and isn't really offering enough on the pitch compared to the likes of Traore. And hopefully, once Nunes gets up to speed and gets a little bit more comfortable in the shape, what he can offer as well. But that obviously kind of leaves us at a nice kind of breaking point in terms of the season. We've got a bit of a rest in terms of having to watch what has been a really average football team, to be honest, especially in attacking areas. So far this season, we sit rock bottom. It's not been good at all, but there is kind of light at the end of the tunnel with Lopetegui having the time to sit with the coaching staff, figure out a way of moving forward with the current group, to figure out where we might need additions. And he's actually got plenty of time on the training pitch with a lot of the players as well. So hopefully we should be looking a hell of a lot better the other side of the World Cup. First game up against Gillingham as well for a place in the Carabao Cup quarter-final. But it's a good point to obviously take a break ourselves as well. I've actually got some more content lined up with European football expert David Cartledge at the back end of this week to talk a little bit more about Julian Lopetegui and what he's going to bring to the club. But other than that, I think it's going to be a period of rest for us all at Wolves Fancast, barring a couple of World Cup specials. But thanks for tuning in. This is officially the 50th GTA that I've done. So thanks to everybody who has been supporting and watching. I'd like to think some of the kind of themes that I brought up in these videos have entered the discourse around Wolves from a tactical perspective. So long may that continue, and I'll continue to bring you plenty of content the other side of the World Cup. And hope you all have a good break from Wolverhampton Wanderers at least. And I'll see you on the other side.